Hello my friends, I hope you're having a lovely day, and in today's video we are reviewing Super Mario 3D All-Stars. Right off the bat, I want you to know that I did not play each game to completion, but I did play a significant portion of each game. I felt for the purposes of this review it was more important to talk about how each game feels in its transition to the Switch rather than the content of each game. This isn't a review of the games themselves really, although I will talk about parts of the games. It's more of a review of how this port is handled. I did play each of these games to completion when they originally launched, so there's that, but just wanted to be clear up front. As you probably know, Super Mario 3D All-Stars is a collection of 3 Mario games that include Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. If you've played Super Mario All-Stars, you are probably aware that Super Mario 3D All-Stars is pretty much a no-frills package when it comes to what extra content is included. The game has a very basic menu. It also allows you to read a little bit about each game, and then they have included soundtracks for each game as well, which you can scroll through and play any tune that you want. But outside of that, yeah, it's just a very basic menu to give you access to the games themselves, so there's really not much to say about it. Now, Super Mario 64 is probably the game people have the least amount of questions about as far as how the port is handled, because we've seen it ported to other platforms already. It's on the Wii U Virtual Console, for example. And this version of the game plays absolutely fine. It plays just like it did in the original N64 release. I want to stress that these are not like mega overhauls of these games in any way, shape, or form. They very much look like they did back in the day, albeit obviously a much higher resolution, and there's some slight texture rework as well, but nothing major by any means. You are just getting a way to play these classic games on the Switch, so if you're looking for all kinds of new bells and whistles and things like that, you're not going to get it. So Super Mario 64 looks like Super Mario 64, and it plays like Super Mario 64. And for some people, that's going to be absolutely fine. Obviously, I played Super Mario 64 when it originally came out. Camera controls are certainly more restrictive than what you'd expect in games today or from games today. You're gonna feel the camera giving you some trouble from time to time, but this is nothing that's introduced new for the Switch version. It's simply how the game was when it released on the N64. But as long as you can wrangle the controls for the camera, the game is still fantastic. It's still a ton of fun to play. I feel that Mario is super responsive, and the game is just awesome all around. It's such an important game in the Mario franchise and continues to inspire developers to this day. And if you've never played it before, the version here in the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection is definitely a great way to go. Controls in Super Mario 64 feel very responsive. Everything pretty much falls where you would expect it to. As far as button placement, really I have no issues. I jumped right into the game and I wasn't fumbling around for why is this button doing this or that button doing that. All of it worked out exactly as I expected. I was just blowing through the screens of explanation and the signs that tell you what does what, because I didn't really think I needed to use them, because I figured the game would just automatically use the buttons that I expected for the actions that I wanted, and that's exactly how it played out. So, like I said, just the restrictive camera options are a sign of that time, and we've moved on since then. But outside of that, the game is still ridiculously playable. Plenty of stuff to explore, all kinds of fun stuff to do. And again, this is a great way to play it. Moving on, we have Super Mario Sunshine, which people were more interested in seeing how it would work on the Switch version, because there are some differences, at least when it comes to controls. Over on the GameCube controller had analog triggers for controlling the flood spray when you were shooting, but the Switch does not have analog triggers, so they had to do it a little bit differently. In the Switch version, ZR is used for what they call a running squirt, and I can't say that without laughing. So you hold down the trigger and Mario runs around and shoots the stream out of FLUDD. Then you use the R button for stop and squirt, so that means you are locked in position when you hold the R trigger and then you aim that way. So definitely a change from what it was in Sunshine on the GameCube, but it's handled just fine. Like, it's not a hindrance by any means, and it works perfectly well for the gameplay. It's also worth noting that because you're controlling FLUDD in Super Mario Sunshine and you direct where the nozzle sprays, that includes left, right, up, and down, There is no inverse option here, and unless I'm crazy, I believe it was the same thing when the original Super Mario Sunshine came out, because I do have not vivid memories, but memories of struggling with where I wanted to aim FLUDD at first, because I'm an inverse player, and that's not what it is here. So when you're holding the trigger to shoot, you press up and the nozzle of FLUDD goes up. You press down and the nozzle of FLUDD goes down. So for me, I would love to have it the opposite way. I want to push up for the nozzle to aim down and down for the nozzle to aim up. But that is not here. Again, this is not an enhanced port, really, or I guess it's an enhanced version, barely, but you're not going to get those quality of life features, which I think is a shame. It would be nice if they added in that kind of stuff, but it is not here. Did it hinder my gameplay? No, it didn't. It was the same thing when I originally played Sunshine. It took me maybe like 10 minutes to wrap my mind around it, thinking up is up and down is down. And I know for the majority of players that's just normal, but there are players out there who play inverse. But again, it wasn't really an issue for me. I get used to it fairly quickly, but I think we can all agree that it's a disappointment that Nintendo didn't include that option in there. It seems like something that should be there from day one. Just such a minor thing to add into the options, and it's not here. But for better or worse, these are very, very lightly enhanced ports of the original. Outside of that, the game is Super Mario Sunshine. I do like Sunshine a lot, and I think it has some really inventive levels and level design, but I always felt the game was a bit wonky. I always felt it was a bit off in controls and a bit slippery and a bit just odd with its physics, and that is certainly present here in Super Mario Sunshine. This is the version of the game that you most likely remember, so when I started playing, like within the first half hour, I was like, oh yeah, man, I remember this. Just like the mechanics of Mario slowly moving backwards in the sky when you're using FLUDD sometimes, depending on how you jump, or just not sticking landings that you would expect to, not grabbing onto things that you would expect, and just slippery platforms in general. They're still there. And if anything, I found them a little more annoying this time because Mario games have become so much more refined in controls since Super Mario Sunshine. Like, controls have been so ridiculously spot on. So to go to something like this makes it feel a bit odd, but I want to stress once again, this is not a factor of the game being brought over to Switch. It has nothing to do with Switch. It's how the game always was. So if you've never played Sunshine before, I think when you play it this time, you're going to find the controls to be a little bit loose. Then there is the game that had to be changed the most for its port over to Switch, and that's Super Mario Galaxy. And obviously that's because it was for the Wii, and the Wii used the Wii Remote reticle, or the IR pointers, so you pointed at the TV screen to collect star bits, and you also used the Wii Remote to shake to make Mario spin. So things had to be changed in somewhat considerable ways for the port to Switch. And to be completely honest, I think in some ways this version is better when it comes to controls than the Wii release. Now, if you were playing Super Mario Galaxy on the Wii, you would have to have the Wii remote pointed at your sensor bar or in a general area of your sensor bar to move the reticle around and collect the star bits. Now, on the Switch, there is no sensor bar, and the Joy-Con doesn't have the same IR port that the Wii remote did. So what happens here is the Joy-Con uses its 3D space sensing capabilities to give you a reticle on screen, and pretty much it's centered for wherever your hand typically rests. So wherever your hand feels comfortable, that's the center spot. And then you just move your hand around to collect, or to move the reticle. So instead of having to point at a device and find the reticle on screen like you did with the Wii, here it's on the screen and you just move your hand around and you already see where the reticle is. So that's actually better, I think, because you don't have to have that constant line of sight with the sensor bar like you did on the Wii. Now, obviously, as you might know, the Wii remote and the sensor bar, when they could see each other, were perfectly in sync. Here, the Joy-Con is just doing its own thing on its own, so it will become out of sync. Slowly, your reticle will feel a little bit off-center. It'll be to the left, to the right, up or down, and that will happen more often if you're using the Joy-Con to shake to do Mario's spin attack. So they left that over from the Wii remote in the original release, or you can use the Y button to make Mario spin. I've been using the Joy-Con shaking method just because that's the one that feels natural to me. So my reticle did get out of sync and felt a little wonky based on where I was positioned. It felt like off. But honestly, it really wasn't a big deal because you use ZR to shoot star bits and then you use R to recenter the Joy-Con. And I would just hit that, or recenter the, recenter the Joy-Con and the reticle. So you just hit R and it'll zip the reticle right back to the center of the screen. So wherever your hand naturally falls when you're playing, you just hit R and the reticle goes right back. And it was honestly no fuss at all. Yes, you have to do it somewhat frequently. I would imagine you'll have to do it less if you're hitting Y for spin attack, but it was never something that annoyed me. I played perfectly fine with it, and that's why I said in some ways it's better than how it was done on the Wii. It's better in the sense that you don't have to keep the line of sight with the Wii remote, with the center bar, but it's worse in the sense that it has to be recentered or recalibrated. But again, it's just literally the press of one button, and it never got in my way. And I went back and forth on whether I liked it better or not, because obviously the recentering adds another step that wasn't in the Wii version of the game, but the ease of being able to hold the Joy-Con however I want when I played was much more comfortable. So, I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see what other people think, but I do think the solution here is perfectly fine. I think it works great. I never had problems moving the reticle where I wanted to when I played. It was, like I said, I would recenter and go wherever. It was perfectly fine. I used it for the menus, I used it for everything. Shooting enemies, it all worked perfectly fine. I can't stress enough that it wasn't an issue for me. Will people have an issue with it? Maybe. I'm sure there's going to be some people who don't want to hit the button all the time. You might remember on the Wii there were games that used Motion Plus and they had to be recentered too. I believe Skyward Sword had you press down on the directional pad on the Wii remote to recenter things if things got out of whack. That was never an issue for me, and this isn't either. It is certainly different from how it was on the Wii, and I think people are going to be a little divided, but honestly, I think the implementation here is really well done. And for me personally, it never was a problem at all, not even a little bit. I have to point out that Super Mario Galaxy in handheld mode, you can still collect star bits and all that stuff, but obviously you're not faux pointing anything. You're touching the touchscreen to collect them. So you're dragging your finger across the touchscreen to collect star bits, or you're using them to use the star portals, whatever, sling stars, whatever they're called. And that implementation feels good, but I'm not crazy about rubbing my finger all over the touchscreen all the time. And there's a considerable amount of things to do in the game that you would be using the pointer, the reticle to do. So I prefer playing on TV. It is an option. I wouldn't say it's the best way to play the game. It's a serviceable way to play the game, but yeah, between the two experiences, I think the Joy-Con reticle is a much better option than using the touchscreen, because you also have to take your finger or your hand off the unit, the Switch itself, to collect some of this stuff. So it's not exactly going to be comfortable. Again, it's an option. It works. It's functional, but it is not the best. And then the rest of Super Mario Galaxy is just fantastic. It's still an amazing game. This and Super Mario Galaxy 2 are probably my favorite Mario games ever. And they're still, Super Mario Galaxy is still just as good here. Just such an awesome game. Amazing soundtrack. I can't say enough good things about it. I couldn't when it originally launched, and I still can't now. I was blown away by Galaxy's graphics on the Wii back when it launched, because I was like, man, they're really squeezing some power out of the Wii. And I still think the game looks good today, and obviously now you're running it in a much higher resolution, so it looks really impressive. I still love the look of the game. Everything about this game is absolutely phenomenal, and out of all the games in this collection, out of the 3 games in this collection, Galaxy is the one I am, without a doubt, going to play through to the end, because I just love the game, and it feels so good to me with the Joy-Con that any worries that I had are gone, so I'm just so excited to play more, even though I've played the game already. When I was done recording footage, I was like, oh, I want to play some more, which is always a good sign. So yeah, if you were worried about Galaxy having issues in its port in this collection, I would say forget all of them. There's really none. Again, handheld mode isn't the best way to play, but it should be more than fine. And that is Super Mario 3D All-Stars. It's a very bare bones collection when it comes to bells and whistles and, fancy menus and extra features and all that. This is very much just a way for you to play 3 classic 3D Mario games on the Switch. Again, there's very light texture work here. Most of it is as it was on the original systems. You'll see tutorials have been changed to include button prompts that are appropriate for the Switch, but really outside of that, these are how the games were when they originally launched. And as long as you are okay with that, then this is a collection of 3 fantastic Mario games. There's so much to do between these 3 games. You should be able to spend a ton of time in them, and it is nice to be able to play them on the Switch. So that's what you get. A compilation of 3 Mario games, and you play it on the Switch. If you're cool with that, then you should be very cool with this package.